Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Actually, there are two sides of this argument. Some say that the Absolute has no form, Nirakar. And others say that the Absolute has a form, Sakar. Therefore, the word form is a common factor, although some accept it, Asti or Astika, whereas others try to negate it, Nasti or Nastika. Since the devotee considers the word form, Akara, the common factor for both, he offers his respectful obeisances to the form, although others may go on arguing about whether the Absolute has a form or not. In this verse, the word Yoga Sankhya is very important. Yoga means Bhakti Yoga because yogis also accept the existence of the all-pervading Supreme Soul and try to see the Supreme Soul within their heart. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Dhyana Vasita Tadgatina Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogina. The devotee tries to come directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the yogi tries to find the Super Soul within the heart by meditation. Thus both directly and indirectly, yoga means Bhakti Yoga. Sankhya, however, means physical study of the cosmic situation through speculative knowledge. This is generally known as Jnana Shastra. These Sankhyites are attached to the impersonal Brahman, but the Absolute Truth is known in three ways. Brahmeti Parmatmiti Bhagwan iti Shabdate. The Absolute Truth is one, but some accept him as impersonal Brahman, some as a super soul existing everywhere, and some as Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The central point is the Absolute Truth. Although the impersonalists and personalists fight with one another, we focus upon the same Parabrahman, the same Absolute Truth. In the Yoga Shastra, Krishna is described as follows: Krishnam Krishangam Baram Ambuje Kshanam Chatur Bhujam Sankhya Gadadi Udayudham. Thus the pleasing appearance of the Supreme Personality of God as bodily features, his limbs and his dress are described. The Sankhya Shastra, however, denies the existence of the Lord's transcendental form. The Sankhya Shastra says the Supreme Absolute Truth has no hands, no legs, and no names. He anama rupa guna pani padam achaksho aslotamekam advitam apinama rupadikam nasti. The Vedic mantra says, Apani pado javana grahita. The Supreme Lord has no legs and no hands, but he can accept whatever is offered to him. Actually, such statements accept that the Supreme has hands and legs, but they deny that he has material hands and legs. This is why the Absolute Truth is called Aprakrita. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has a Satchidananda Vigraha, a form of eternity, knowledge and bliss, not a material form. These Sankhyites or Jnanis deny the material form, and the devotees also know very well that the Absolute Bhagwan has no material form. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Controller. He is an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He is no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. The conception of the Absolute without hands and legs and the conception of the Absolute with hands and legs are apparently contradictory, but they both coincide with the same truth about the Supreme Absolute Person. Therefore the word Vastu Nistayo, which is used here, indicates that both the yogis and the Sankhyites have faith in the reality, but are arguing about it from the different viewpoints of mature and spiritual identities. Parabrahman or Bhrat is a common point. The Sankhyites and Yoga are both situated in the same Brahman, but they differ because of different angles of vision. The directions given by the Bhakti Shastra point out in the perfect direction because the Supreme Personality of God says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktyamam Avidanti. Only by devotional service am I to be known. The Bhaktas know that the Supreme Person has no material form, whereas the Jnanis simply deny any material form. One should therefore take shelter of the Bhakti mark, the path of devotion. Then everything will be clear. Jnanis concentrate on the Virat Rupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord. This is a good system in the beginning for those who are extremely materialistic, but there is no need to think continuously of the Virat Rupa. When Arjuna was shown the Virat Rupa of Krishna, he saw, but he did not want to see it perpetually. He therefore requested the Lord to return to the original creature as two-armed Krishna. In conclusion, learned scholars find no contradiction in the devotee's concentration upon the spiritual form of the Lord. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says that less intelligent non-devotees think that their conclusion is the ultimate. But because devotees are completely learned, they can understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal. Okay. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is being offered respects by Daksha. Mamam Paramhi Anukulam Brihatat. Brihatat means the ultimate cause. So, and Paramam means the transcendental form. So the Lord is the ultimate cause, and we had discussed on this yesterday. So, what we hear references made to the theists and the atheists and the Sankhyaites. What is the Sankhya philosophy? This is explained by Lord Kapila. Actually, there are two Kapilas that have appeared. One is Kapila, the son of Devahuti, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the other Kapila appeared a lot later, who preached impersonalism and also who denied the existence of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, when this book, Teaching the Lord Kapila, was coming out, Prabhupada insisted that on the cover they write, Teaching the Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti. So people do not confuse the second Kapila with the original Kapila. So Sankhya philosophy means to understand the difference between Prakriti and Purusha. The Sankhya philosophy analyzes the 24 material elements of which this earth is composed, and it acknowledges that Prakriti is subordinate to Purusha. We are all Prakriti, now we may be in different bodies. Purusha means male, and Purusha also means the supreme enjoyer. So the conclusion of the Sankhya philosophy is that the only male is Krishna. He is the only Purusha. And we are all Prakritis. We are all his part and parcels, and hence we are all subordinate. So the purpose of explaining this Sankhya philosophy to Devahuti was to point out how devotional service is the best of all. This is explained in the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, how devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead surpasses all desires for liberation. There are 5 types of liberation that one can realize. One can become one with the Lord. He can have the same features as the Lord. He can live on the same planet as the Lord. He can have the same opulences as the Lord. Same features. You can live on the same planet. You can become one with the Lord. Which is the one that's left out? Same form as the Lord. So there are these 5 different types of liberations that one can realize. But the devotee, as explained by Lord Kapila, he doesn't hanker for these different types of liberation. This is explained by Rupa Goswami. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami describes the different characteristics of pure devotional service. And pure devotional service surpasses even liberation, because by taking to the path of this liberation, you want to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death. But if you take to the path of Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti, Mukti is automatically included in it. Just like a $100 bill also includes what a $10 bill can purchase. So similarly, the path of Bhakti Yoga automatically includes Mukti also. Therefore, Bilmangal Thakur has prayed that Mukti is standing with folded hands next to me and begging me to please tell what I want. And Bhavananda Saraswati, a devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said that the desire to have mukti or become one with the Lord is very hellish. So the 2 classes of people in society, the theists and the atheists, the suras and the asuras, the devotees and the non-devotees, And the transcendentals are further divided into different categories. There are some who want to perform fruitive activities. There are some who want to realize yogic perfection. There are some who are on the path of Jnana Yoga. They're just speculating about the nature of the Supreme. And then there are those who take to the path of Bhakti Yoga. So there are different types of transcendentals. Now the non-devotee, what is his business? His business is to just pursue the path of sense gratification from morning to night. He doesn't believe in God. The non-devotees are divided into 4 classes. Namam duskitna mura prapadeti naradama mayaya parta jnana ashram bhavan ashritaha. The 4 classes are as follows. One is a Buddha. Buddha is a hard-working beast who works hard from morning to night carrying a heavy burden of load, but he doesn't understand that what is the real purpose of human life. Then there is the Naradama, the lowest of mankind. Then there is the Maya Parta Jnana. Those who are very proud of the empiric knowledge and studies. They also deny the existence of God. They deny the necessity for surrendering to God or accepting the scriptures or guidance. And Ashram Bhavan Ashritaha, those who openly claim that they are atheists. So these are the 4 categories of demonic people. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the demons are just cast by him into lower species of life. They are just condemned. So the bhaktas, as we said, are also of different categories. But Chaitanya Charitamrita says that Bhakti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami. These are the 4 classes of bhaktas. Bhakti is one who wants to perform fruitive activities. Fruitive activities means you perform some yajna, you make some offering, but the goal is to get some sense gratification in return, some material benefit. Just like there are different people who worship the demigods. But why do they worship the demigods? Because they want to get some type of benefit in the long run. They want to be promoted to the heavenly planets. The life in these higher planets is greater than that on this planet, the duration. For example, in the upper planet, our 6 months is equal to just 1 day over there. So the point is that the duration varies in the upper planets. So the living entity, he can go to these other upper planets like performance of bhakti, fruitive work. But that is also temporary. Just like the aeroplane has to descend before it runs out of fuel, or the car has to stop before it runs out of fuel. Before the car runs out of fuel, you go to the gas station. So similarly, those in the path of bhakti, they also have to descend. So it is not very intelligent. Then mukti, mukti. Mukti are those who want liberation. And we have discussed that there are 5 types of liberation. But even this is not permanent. The gopis never wanted liberation. The gopis just wanted the opportunity to serve the Lord again and again. When the gopis were asked to give the dust from their feet in order to cure the headache of the Lord, they willingly parted with the dust because they were told that this dust will cure the headache of Krishna. Now, they were also warned that if the dust from the lotus feet touches the forehead of the Supreme Lord, then this can be very hazardous for themselves. But their only consideration was, will Krishna be served or not? And if Krishna will be served, then they should do it. So, those who want mukti, they are also not very intelligent. Rupa Goswami has said that the happiness that one can get by this impersonal realization, that is multiplied 1,000,000,000,000, not even once or twice, 1,000,000,000,000,000. Still it cannot compare even to a small fraction of the happiness that one gets in serving Krishna through the medium of Bhakti Yoga. Then there are siddhis. There are 8 types of siddhis, mystic perfection that one can realize. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that even if you realize these different types of siddhis, still there cannot be any real happiness. The devotee of the Lord he does not aspire for perfection in any of these siddhis. For example, there is the Anima Siddhi, by which one can become very small, he can become even smaller than the stone. But a devotee says, what is the use of my having this siddhi to become smaller than the stone? Actually, the scientists have already realized this siddhi because the scientists have been able to construct underground tunnels, underground bridges, underground residences. So that is also actually piercing through a stone. So the scientists have already realized this Anima Siddhi. Then there is the Laghima Siddhi, where one can enter the sun planet by using the rays of the sun. We are all trying to go to the sun planet, but we do not know how to get there. We are thinking that these spacecrafts will be able to take us there. But these spacecrafts cannot take us there. We can go to these other planets if we have the ticket to buy, if we have the right ticket. You can't just go to any destination with any ticket. You can't come to Canada unless you have the right ticket. The Canadian immigration won't let you come in. So, Laghima Siddhi means where you can be sitting in one place, but you can enter the sun planet by using the sun rays of the planet. Imagine. Then there is the Prapti Siddhi. Prapti Siddhi means where you can be sitting in one place, but you can extend his hand. You can extend your hand and fetch anything out from any location that you want. You can extend your hand 1,000 miles and pluck a flower from the garden. Or you can extend your hand into someone's pocketbook and take out some bills. Huh? Yeah, it'd be the best if you knew how to work with it. Then there is the Ishita Siddhi. That is, you can destroy an entire planet at will. These days, if you want some destruction to take place, they have to throw these nuclear bombs. And when they throw these bombs, the innocent also get killed. But if you have this Ishita Siddhi, then you can destroy an entire planet just at will. You don't have to really drop any bombs at all. And then there's the Washita Siddhi, where you can bring anyone under your control. This is also perfected by those who are trying to perfect the art of black magic. You hypnotize the other person, and you hypnotize them to actually just believe everything that you're saying. Like some of these cults do that. People accuse us of being cults, but we are not cults. We are a bona fide religious movement. But in a cult, for example, they may do it. So there are different cities. Washita Siddhi means where you hypnotize someone to bring his mind under control. And then there is Prakamya Siddhi, which means he can achieve anything that he wants. He can even have water come out from his eyes. So there are these different types of siddhis. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita says that you may have any of these siddhic perfections also, but still the living entity cannot be peaceful. You can also have Mahima Siddhi. That is a siddhi where you can become as big as you want. There's a limit to the height in which one can go. There's a limit to how you can fly. Even the aeroplanes have a limit. The normal aeroplane that you fly on flies about 35,000 feet above ground. And the warplanes or the spy planes, they go a lot higher. They go up to 100,000 feet, they say, or even more. But if you have this Mahima Siddhi, then you can go as high as you want, or you can even become as big as you want. And then the Washita Siddhi, where you can even contradict the laws of nature. That is, in the summer season, if you desire, winter may come. In the winter season, if you desire, summer may come. The materialists would love to have that siddhi because they're always complaining about the weather. When it's very warm, they remember the winter. When it's very cold, they remember the summer. So, if everyone had this Washita Siddhi in their control, then they could just have their desired weather. Just like you can regulate the air conditioner at home to the speed level you want. But we can't regulate the weather. You can regulate the internal weather, but not the external. So, there are these 8 different types of mystic siddhis. So the devotee, he doesn't want perfection in any of these 8 mystic siddhis either. So the statement is that those who are trying to be on the path of Bhakti, those who are trying to realize the 8 siddhis, or those who are trying to achieve some type of liberation, they're all to be considered to be Ashanta. Ashanta means unpeaceful. And it is only the devotees of the Lord who are to be considered to be peaceful. Why? Because the devotees of the Lord, they have understood what is the real mission of human life. They have understood that self-realization means to understand the difference between matter and spirit. What is the meaning of self-realization? That a devotee must understand. If a devotee has understood the meaning of self-realization, then he has to abide by that. A devotee, he doesn't want perfection in these different siddhis or even the desire to become one with the Lord, because to him that is the maiden soul to the Lord. Just like if you're working for an employer and you tell the employer, when can I have your chair? When can I become one with you? He's going to feel so offended, isn't it? I mean, he's going to really feel very offended. So similarly, the Lord also feels very offended when we want to become one with the Lord. But of course, the Lord is very kind. He tolerates it. So the genuine followers of the path of Sankhya Yoga, which is being mentioned here, they take to the process of devotional service because Sankhya Yoga is nothing but an analytical study of Prakriti and Purusha. The conclusion of Sankhya Yoga philosophy is that everything is coming from the Lord, everything belongs to Krishna, and hence everyone must engage in devotional service. But this imposter Sankhya, imposter Kapila appeared a lot later, and he presented a theory where they were just a study of the 24 elements, but no study of the person behind these elements, or the person who is responsible for this whole creation. Therefore it stays away. The Sankhya, however, who merely analyzes the material elements. So just analyzing the material elements is not enough. Just going to the doctor to get yourself examined is not enough. When you go to the doctor to get yourself examined, you go with the intention that what the doctor tells you, you're going to follow that. Otherwise, going to the doctor is a waste of time. So similarly, those who take to spiritual life, they must understand that what is the real meaning of this process of self-realization. Self-realization means understanding everything in its true light. Just like when it is dark, we cannot see. But when you come in the night and put the switch on, then you can see exactly where everything is situated, isn't it? Or similarly, when the sun comes out in the morning, then you can exactly identify the location of everything. But in darkness, you cannot see. So similarly, we are all in darkness. But when we receive this transcendental knowledge, then our eyes open and we begin to understand the meaning of self-realization. So the self-realization path means to understand how this human form of life is to be lived. Otherwise, the self-realization is just theoretical. If we just understand theoretically that we are not this body, but we are pure spirit soul, but we don't do anything to demonstrate this understanding, then the whole understanding of the Sankhya philosophy is completely theoretical. So genuine Sankhya philosophy culminates in devotional service, because Lord Kapila explained to Devahuti that the different senses are the representatives of the demigods, and the mind is the representative of the Supreme Lord. And the perfection is if the different senses in the mind can be used in the service of the Lord. That is a real perfection, and that is the real Sankhya philosophy. But later on, when an imposter Kapila appeared, then he took the word Purusha out and he just analyzed the 24 material elements. So just analyzing the material elements is not enough. Further, there is mention over here that there are the three stages of realizing the Lord, or the Lord can be realized on three different aspects: Brahman, Parmatma, and Bhagwan. As we explained yesterday, Brahman and Parmatma are only partial realizations of the Absolute. They are realizations of the Sat and the Chit portions of the Absolute. But if you want to understand the Supreme Lord completely, then there is no alternative but to take the process of devotional service. Because it is only by the process of devotional service can you free yourself of all these designations. What are these designations? Identifying with the body. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tat padvela nirmalam rishikina rishikina sevanam bhaktir uchate. So, that is, in order to be free from all these designations, one should take to the process of devotional service. So Bhagwan and Parmatma realization, Brahman and Parmatma realizations are incomplete. Prabhupada used to give an example. Somebody must see a mountain top from a great distance. From a great distance, one can just see that there is something on the top of the mountain peak. So that is compared to the Brahman realization. You go a little closer, you start climbing the mountain, then you can see that there is a little bit of variety, variegatedness on the top of the peak. There are a few other trees, plants, some houses. That is like Parmatma. Then you go a little further, you go on the top of the peak. Then you can really see actually how everything is. So, Bhagwan realization is understanding the Lord in His transcendental features and understanding the Lord as one who possesses 6 opulences in unlimited degree. Aishwarasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashya jnana viragyavashya sanna bhagaitin. This is explained by Parsha Muni, the father of Vyasadeva. The Supreme Lord is one who possesses 6 opulences in unlimited degree. Aishwarasya samagrasya, He is the richest of all. He is the strongest of all. Viryasya, Yashasha, He is the most beautiful. Shriya, He is the most famous. One may even go to any corner of the world and ask what is the meaning of God. They will tell you. You may even go to a communistic country where they don't believe in God. But if you ask them what does God mean, they will tell you. Jnana Virag, He is very knowledgeable and is also the most renowned. When Krishna was in the midst of performing the Rasa dance, He would just withdraw from the association of the gopis to show His renunciation feature. And besides possessing these 6 opulences in unlimited degree, the Supreme Lord is eternal, full of knowledge and blissful. Now a devotee who understands this, and if he takes to the process of devotional service, then the devotee can also realize bliss. Because the Lord is all blissful. This is also confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Chaitanya Parmarjana, that this process of devotional service or doing Sankirtan is the process by which the whole society can become happy, can become joyful. Tasma, the Bhagavatam also says that Jagat Mangalam Amahasam, the whole world becomes a joyful place for the performance of the Sankirtan. So the devotees of the Lord, they understand this is the complete meaning of the science of self-realization. But the non-devotees, they keep on struggling, moving from one activity to another, moving from one location to another, but still there's no happiness. They are busy doing research, and they're very proud of their research. For example, all these big companies, they spend up to 10 to 15% of the yearly income in doing research. Well, what are they researching into? In these big universities, there's so many different departments. But is there any department that tells one what happens to life after death? That information is not there at all. So, the materialists, they are just living in darkness. Just like if we live in darkness, we cannot know the true position of everything in the house. So because they're living in complete darkness, they do not know what is the real business of human life. But the devotees of the Lord, they are not living in darkness. They are living under Krishna's sun. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hayandikara Yana Krishna Pahini Maya Dikara. Just like where there is sunshine, there is no darkness. So the devotees are living under Krishna's sun. And what is the feature of the sun? The sun is always moving, isn't it? I mean, looking at from a mundane vision, it may appear that the sun is actually standing still. Just like when you're flying on the plane, very often you look out of the window, you don't really feel that the plane's moving. Has anyone remarked that? You look through the plane, it's just standing straight, floating in the air. But actually the plane's moving at a very fast pace. So similarly the sun, it appears that it's not moving, but it is moving at the speed of several thousand miles a minute. That is the speed of the sun. So the sun is moving. And Krishna is always moving. The son of Krishna is moving. So the devotee has to move along with the son of Krishna. Like Krishna is always moving, so the devotee is also always moving. And if the devotee is always moving, then the dense darkness will never be there. Then the devotee will never be confused. Then the devotee will always be blissful. Sometimes we see that our own devotees say that they're not feeling the bliss or they're not feeling the happiness. What is it? The reason they're not feeling the real spiritual bliss is because the purpose for which they came, the science of self-realization, to become self-realized, that has been forgotten. Self-realization is not something theoretical, that you understand the difference between spirit and matter. It is something practical. You have to live by that philosophy. We have to live by the philosophy that there is a difference between this body and the soul. And live by that philosophy. We have to live by the philosophy that there is a difference between this body and the soul. And the body is subject to destruction and the soul is eternal. If we are ready to live by this philosophy, then it means that we are actually on the path of self-realization. Then it means that we are serious about devotional service. But if our knowledge is only theoretical, then that knowledge is not to be considered to be very helpful. Just like these politicians. The politicians get up and make big speeches, but they don't believe in it. They don't try and practice it. So the devotee is not expected to be like a politician or a so-called member of the society. But he has to actually live by the path of self-realization which he is trying to pursue. He has to really live in such a way that is clearly the goal of human life is not being clouded. Just like the sun disk may be there, but the clouds can come and hide the sun disk from us. So mature desires are like clouds. The mature desires come and cover us up, and hence we are not able to remain under the rays of Krishna's sun. But if we are genuinely serious about this process of self-realization, then we would always want to be in Krishna, under the rays of Krishna's sun. It's not just love. Just like in this room over here, at the moment there is light. And suppose there's a hole in some corner. There's no chance that anyone will fall in that hole. Why? Because the light is there and everyone who has eyes can see there's a hole. But if it was dark and there was a hole and you were walking in the room, there would be a possibility that you may fall in that hole, isn't it? So similarly, if you're always under the influence of Krishna's sun, then you're seeing everything clearly. You clearly see. Sankhya philosophy means to clearly see the difference between matter and spirit. To clearly understand the difference between Prakriti and Purusha. So when you are under the influence of Krishna's sun, then you clearly see the difference between Prakriti and Purusha. One may artificially think that I'm in a male's body, so how can you call me Prakriti? Because Prakriti is identified to be female and Purusha is identified to be male. So somebody's ego may get hurt and say, how can you say that I'm a female? But the Vedas reply to this by saying that this vision of male and female is actually just material. By material calculation or estimation, one may appear to be in a male body and the other may appear to be in a female body, and hence one may conclude, since I'm in a male body, I must enjoy the female. But according to the spiritual dictionary, whether one is in a male's form or in a female's form, one is Prakriti or subordinate or female, and the only Purusha or enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all others are Prakriti. So, the Sankhya philosophy, as taught by Lord Kapila Dev, the incarnation of Godhead, the son of Kadama Muni and Devahuti, is to bring the living entity to the point where he can render pure devotional service. Lord Kapila Dev has very proudly said to his mother Devahuti that my devotees are so great that they even laugh at this concept of liberation. They do not even think of the concept of liberation because their desire is just to serve me. Like in the Bhagavatam, Lord Shiva tells Parvati wanted to curse Chitraketu, but Lord Shiva told her, don't underestimate the Vaishnavas. Nayan Parasarve Nakutashana Devyati Swarga Pavarga Narkesha Vapitulya Sadarshana. That in order to serve Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Vaishnavas will even go to hell. So the point is, the Vaishnava is always under the Son of Krishna. And because he is always under the Son of Krishna, he is also moving with Krishna. The Vaishnava, the devotee, he is very active. He is not complacent. The moment one becomes complacent in spiritual life, the bliss from spiritual life disappears. The sun doesn't stay in one place, and Krishna doesn't stay in one place. Krishna is very active. So the devotee, he is also very active. But he is active in serving Krishna according to Krishna's direction, according to Krishna's desire. So we always have to keep ourselves under the light of this transcendental knowledge. And if we keep the transcendental knowledge in the forefront of our mind all the time, then we will be able to constantly see the difference between what matters and what is spiritual. What is helpful for spiritual advancement and what is not helpful for spiritual advancement. So the Sankhya philosophy, which is taught by the imposter Kapila, is not a solution to the problem because it just analyzes the material elements. But who is behind these material elements? Present day also there is no shortage of these imposter Kapilas. Just like even in Canada, we are sitting in a province which is blessed with a lot of oil. And everyone's analyzing how the oil can be further found. Everyone's analyzing and fighting how the oil revenues have to be spent. But nobody is fighting or trying to find out how the oil revenues can be used to serve the Lord. Because the Lord is a cause of this. One may read several speeches in the papers from the Prime Minister of Alberta and the Federal Prime Minister and so on discussing the oil policies. But has anyone ever read a speech in which God has been thanked for providing this oil? At least I've never read that. They have $12 billion in the Heritage Fund. Have they made any provision that even a small portion of that Heritage Fund is going to be used to glorify God? No. So, they're just trying to analyze this material nature, but they're not trying to analyze the cause of that material nature. So this is the difference between the so-called modern Kapilas and Kapila Dev, the son of Devahuti. The genuine Kapila Dev, he analyzed these material elements and the cause of these material elements. Whereas the present-day imposters, they don't really analyze the cause. They just want to take the fruit and they want to utilize the fruit for their sense gratification. So over here, Daksha is stating that Krishna is the cause of both, and Krishna is also the cause of those who believe that the Lord has a form and He doesn't have a form. It is referred to as Nirakara and Sakara. There are some transcendentalists as the Dhyanis. We have discussed the fruitive worker and we have discussed those who want yogic perfection. But we have not discussed the Dhyanis at length. The Dhyanis, they speculate on the nature of the Absolute. And because they speculate about the nature of the Absolute, they can never understand the Supreme Lord. Because as I said yesterday, the Supreme Lord can only be understood through the process of devotion. So we will say Om Mukti Jivato. The Supreme Lord cannot be understood by any other process. So the Jnanis, they are busy speculating about the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They conclude that God does not have a form. They conclude that when God appears on this planet, He takes on a mundane form, or He gets contaminated by the material modes, and hence they do not believe in deity worship. But over here Prabhupada talks about the Lord descending in the Archa Vigraha form. The Archa Vigraha form refers to the personal form of the Lord, and the Archa Vigraha form is there in order to give the conditioned soul an opportunity to easily meditate on the Supreme. Because the devotee has complete understanding of the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord, because they have complete understanding that the Lord is inconceivable, they worship the Archa Vigraha form with full faith. They do not speculate about the nature of God. If you were to walk on the streets of Edmonton and do a survey, asking people, what does God look like? I can guarantee you that if you did a survey of 1,000 people, you'd get about 200 to 300 different answers. Everyone would give his own version of what God looked like. If we have these people do a drawing of what God looked like, again, everyone would do his own drawing. But if you did a survey with the devotees of this Krishna conscious movement, asking them, what does God look like? Each and every one would give the same answer. Each and every one. They know what God looks like because they've heard it through the disciplic succession. They've heard it through the parampara process. So the knowledge has to be acquired through the ears. We cannot be proud of these eyes. People are very proud of these eyes. They think that the eyes are so powerful that they challenge and say, can you show me God? But actually, it's explained in the Vedas that these eyes are as good as the painting of a man which has two eyes. No one can see with the eyes if they are painted. So, we cannot see through these eyes, just like the plumes of the peacock feather. They can't see. Actually, we have to see through the ears. That is the transcendental process of seeing. The transcendental process of seeing is not through the eyes. Sometimes we even see devotees of this Krishna conscious movement. They become a little complacent. They become so complacent that they will never come to hear the philosophy, but they will come to greet the deities. Isn't it? I know many of the temples at 10 o'clock when it's time to greet the deities, all of a sudden there's a heavy influx. But when the class time is there, it's a pretty small crowd. So, can we deceive ourselves to think that we are greeting the deities, those who don't hear the philosophy? No. Krishna has to be seen through the ears. Krishna is not seen through the eyes. We have to hear about Krishna. We have to hear about the path of self-realization. We have to hear about the real mission of human life. Then we can actually see Krishna and glorify Krishna. So the devotees of the Lord, they see Krishna, but they see Krishna through the ears. Just like when we go in front of the deities of Radha, Madan, Mohan in Vancouver. How do we know that this is God? Not because your eyes are telling you this is God. Our eyes are so deceptive, the next moment they'll say there's something else. Next moment they'll say Krishna looks like a woman. Many times you come and say that. How do we know that Krishna is male and Radharani is female? How? Because we've heard it through the eyes, through the ears. So the devotee, or one who is serious about spiritual life, he obtains the knowledge through the ears. He is not proud of these eyes. The eyes are deceptive, the senses are deceptive. But through the old reception, the devotee receives transcendental knowledge, and this transcendental knowledge enables him to see clearly. So, if we want to be serious about devotional service, we have to hear very attentively. The conclusion after discussing the different paths of yoga is that Bhakti Yoga is a solution. We see this clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Jnana Yoga, but he concludes by saying, Bhaktimam Abhijananti, I can only be understood by the path of devotional service. So the devotees, they have to constantly remind themselves of these spiritual instructions. The devotees want to be an asset to the Lord, not a liability. In the Oriental culture, like in India for example, the sons are looked upon like a father, and a family is very unhappy till they don't have a son. Why? Because the understanding is that in old age and in times of difficulty, the son will come to the rescue and will take care of the family. And father expects the son to help the father. The Lord expects the devotee to help him in establishing the principles of religion. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has established what is the purpose of his appearing. Yada yadahi dharmasya gnani bhavati bharat. He appears from time to time. Why? Paritanaya sadhanam vinashyata duskatam dharma sanstapanavthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To establish the principles of religion. So, the Lord, on the one hand, is very unhappy to see the conditioned souls in the mature world. He's very unhappy. Just like a father. A father is very unhappy to see his children rebel. Isn't it? A saintly father, a father who understands his duties, he doesn't like to see his son rebel and loiter in the streets. So on the one hand, Krishna is very unhappy seeing the conditioned souls loiter in the mature world. But on the other hand, he becomes very joyful when he sees the conditioned soul is giving up the conditioning and he's trying to become unconditioned. Becoming unconditioned soul means becoming dependent upon the process of devotional service for your happiness. And conditioned soul means becoming dependent upon a variety of conditions in society in order to become happy. So the Supreme Lord, when he sees that the individual soul is becoming unconditioned, or when he's taken to the process of devotional service, he becomes very joyful. So the business of the devotees of this Krishna conscious movement, who are the children of the Supreme Father, is to help the Father. To help the Father in establishing the principles of religion. But someone may argue that why does the Lord need our help? The Lord is omnipotent, omniscient, the Creator. He really doesn't need our help. Just like very often in our preaching, especially to the Indians, they will say, God will supply everything that you need. Don't worry. God will supply. But God wants to make us the instruments of glorification. Just like if Krishna wanted, he could easily have killed Dhritarashtra and his sons and his relatives. There's so many people dying due to earthquakes every day. There's so many people dying due to heart attacks every day. Krishna, it's not a big problem for Krishna to kill anyone. Just like very often people say that God appears to annihilate the miscreants. But Prabhupada explains that that's not the only reason why the Lord appears, because God can annihilate the miscreants through his different agencies. He doesn't have to personally come to annihilate the miscreants. But he appears in order to create Krishna Katha or subject matter for discussion amongst his devotees. So, Krishna wants his devotees to labor for him. He wanted Arjuna and the Pandavas to fight for their victory, isn't it? The Pandavas fought very hard. We may be struggling to spread this Krishna conscious movement, but I can assure you, our struggle is insignificant compared to the struggle of the Pandavas. Our struggle is insignificant compared to the struggle that Prahlad Maharaj had to go through. Our struggle is also insignificant compared to the struggle that Lord Ramachandra himself went through, even though he was the personality of Godhead. So the point is that the devotees of the Lord may have this struggle, but if they are struggling with the conviction that this activity is for the pleasure of the Lord, for the Lord one will do anything, but for oneself one doesn't want anything at all. So the meaning of self-realization should never be lost. Self-realization means I understand that I am Prakriti and Krishna is Purusha. That is self-realization. That you have come to the realization what yourself is. But then you have to live in that spirit throughout. If you don't live in that spirit, then the self-realization meaning has been forgotten. If you don't live in the spirit that I am meant to serve Purusha, Krishna all the time, then again the meaning of self-realization has been forgotten. So if you want to be enthusiastic about executing devotional service, the meaning of self-realization should never be forgotten. We should always live according to the instructions of the revealed scriptures. So we see through our years, and Bhakti Yoga means understanding that the Lord is inconceivable, understanding that the Lord is inconceivable, He has unlimited potencies. In fact, the potencies and the energies of the Lord are so great that even the great sages cannot summarize it. The descriptions of the Lord's body are so magnanimous that even Ananta Sesha with 1,000 heads cannot analyze it and clarify it. Even Brahmaji, after meditating for thousands and thousands of years, cannot really analyze the Lord properly. Even the demigods cannot understand the Supreme Lord. But the devotees of the Lord can. So the Mayavadis, those who say that God doesn't have a form, they are actually the enemies of the Lord. Because what the Mayavadis are really saying is, God, you don't have a hand, you don't have a leg, you don't have eyes, you don't have ears, you don't have anything, you are formless like a ghost. And they have a form. We have a hand, we have a leg, we have the different parts of the body for our enjoyment, isn't it? Imagine if you didn't have these different parts of the body. So the Creator who created us, He doesn't have a form, but the Creator has a form. How can that be? The Creator has to be more intelligent than the Creator. We give all the credit to the engineers and the scientists for all the wonders that they are working. But little do we analyze the wonders that God is creating. And that God is the source of the intelligence that these different scientists and engineers may have. So the devotee, one who is on the path of Bhakti Yoga, he doesn't fall into the trap of the Jnanis also. The Jnanis are very proud of their knowledge. The Jnanis want to speculate, but they also cannot escape the miseries of birth and death. The Jnanis also are not peaceful and happy because they are ashanta. They are also lusty. They also have some material desire. So the Jnanis also, the path of Jnana Yoga is not the solution. The only solution for the devotee is the path of Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is a real path. Bhakti Yoga is the greatest wealth that a living entity can possess. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, Abhideya Nama Bhakti Prema Prayojana. Abhideya means the activities to establish one's relationship with the Lord. Prayojana means the ultimate goal of life. So the living entity should engage in activities which will help in fulfilling the ultimate goal of life. And what is that ultimate goal of life? Purushata Shiromani Prema Mahadana. Purushata Shiromani means the greatest wealth. So the Madhya Leela says the greatest wealth of the living entity is this love of God. Of course, if you were to do a survey, majority of the people would laugh at us. They would think the greatest wealth is to increase the bank balance. But the scriptures, however, do not agree with that. They say, Purushasa Siromani Prema Mahadana. The topmost interest of the living entity is to develop this love of Krishna. So this love of Krishna can only be developed in this human form of life. This human form of life is the best facility for developing this love of Krishna. The facilities on this earthly planet are the most conducive for taking the spiritual life. So the devotees, they recognize that. The real wealth is not this illusory bank balance or some possession. The real wealth is this love of God. And unless we seriously engage in 24 hours in activities by which this love of God can be developed, can be increased, the devotee is not happy. The devotee never becomes complacent. He always wants to keep himself under the rays of Krishna's sun. The devotee wants to minimize his bodily necessities to zero level. Just like if the fan is running, you want to put the fan off, you bring it down to zero. The stove is running, you bring it back to zero when you want to put the stove off. So the devotee, he wants to put the switch of his mature desires back to zero. If he puts it back to zero, then there can be spiritual progress. But if we have the material meter running and the spiritual meter running, then it will not have the desired effect. So, if you be on the path of Bhakti Yoga means to remain fixed up in the process of devotional service all the time, to keep oneself under the influence of Krishna's sun, to never withdraw oneself from Krishna's lotus feet, and if we are constantly engaged in this process of devotional service, then Lord Kapila says that such a devotee returns to the kingdom of God. So this opportunity that we have to take part in the process of Krishna consciousness, they should be cherished. They should be not looked upon lightly. Prabhupada says just like if you have a valuable jewel, you don't throw it away, isn't it? A valuable jewel is kept very attentively. You don't take chances because somebody may come and steal it. So similarly, this Krishna consciousness is a valuable jewel. This is a valuable jewel in the hands of the devotee. And if we keep this valuable jewel very nicely, attentively, then this love of God will come within our heart. So, the devotees must be very serious about executing devotional service. Like the sun moves from the east to the west, very often you can fly and you start at a time, but when you land, it is still the same time. Isn't it? That's when you're moving with the sun, when you're moving from east to west. So the devotee should always move with the sun. And then there will never be any darkness. Then there will never be any possibility of falling in the hole. But if we withdraw from the sun of Krishna, if we are not under the light of Krishna's instructions, then we will fall into the hole of this material world. So if we want to be careful, we have to always understand the meaning of self-realization. Self-realization meaning is not just theoretical. We have to live by that. We must really understand Sankhya philosophy. We may become expert philosophers, but that is not Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga means engaging the senses in the service of the Lord. There are so many Sanskrit philosophers all over the world, but they don't know the real meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. The real meaning of Bhagavad Gita is to engage all the senses in the service of the Lord. So we have to become worthy sons of our Father. Becoming worthy sons of the Father means understanding the mission of the Father and working towards fulfilling that mission. If we do not become worthy sons of the Father, we become liabilities on the Father. We become a burden on the Father. We just increase his headache. Just like Lord Chaitanya told Haridas Thakur, that when I'm looking at these Yamanas, my heart just cries. Because these Yamanas are rewriting the Vedic scriptures and offending the Brahmanas. So this was 500 years ago, and the Lord said, my heart just weeps. So the Lord doesn't derive comfort at seeing the Yamanas. His heart weeps. So the devotees, they have to become loving children of the Father. Loving children of the Father means to follow the orders of the Father. And the orders of the Father are what? That we have to become self-realized and we have to make others self-realized. Not that we become self-realized ourselves, but we have to make others self-realized also. And that is the perfection of human life. Hare Krishna. As you too lack of understanding the Sankhya philosophy. Because the Sankhya philosophy clearly establishes that since we are subordinate, we have to fulfill the desires of the Purusha and enjoy it. So the difficulties will be there. In fact, if something is achieved with difficulty, you cherish it more. If something is achieved easily, you don't even cherish it, even in material life. You know, just like if you see a rare car passing through the street, everyone looks at it. And nobody looks at, the Ford or these ordinary cars the Toyota is passing through. They're so common. So when you get something with difficulty, you cherish it more. So Krishna is Adhokshaja. Krishna is not conquered so easily. You understand? Even the Jnanis cannot understand him. Even the yogis cannot. So the difficulties will be there. But these difficulties are also a test from the Lord to his devotee to see how qualified he is. You understand? That's right. When somebody has to get a visa to enter into the United States, I've heard, I've never had a problem myself, but I've heard that the United States immigration officers, they really put you through a real test to make sure that you are a genuine visitor. Even if somebody wants to immigrate into Canada, they put you a real test to make sure that you're a genuine candidate for what you're trying to achieve. You understand? So similarly, Krishna also puts us through a severe test. Hare Krishna.
Rama